But yeah, I just pulled together kind of some general tips and tricks for folks so that if they wanted a place to start or were just looking for an overview, that they had that available. So we'll talk a bit about what is action planning, some tips and tricks around different tools that you can use for facilitating this with your council, whether that's having in-person meetings or virtual meetings, and then kind of open it up to you all as a group to kind of share and discuss if there's anything more you want to talk about. So overall, action planning, the whole idea behind this is to kind of bring folks together, kind of clarify what they're hoping to accomplish, really set and solidify your common agenda, and kind of defines out each of those goals. I've had folks ask a bit around how is action planning different than doing a work plan. Well, it adds in some of those necessary kind of minute steps, as well as gives a responsible party and assigns roles. So it's kind of that extra piece to really move groups forward of, I think once tasks have an owner, somebody who's kind of responsible for ensuring those things get done, um, it kind of helps a bit. Additionally, for your kind of overall collective or for your council, this can establish more trust and support and an overall enthusiasm, as well as kind of re-solidifying any consensus that the group has come across. Um, because by having a document such as this, where you can kind of mark your progress, see how you're moving towards your goals, your group will have something more tangible to work towards, something that is visual that you can check in with, maybe quarterly, what have you, so that you all can see the work that you're doing. The things that are happening at a local level, sometimes we are so focused on making it from day to day that we may not see the full length of that journey and how far you've really come. So that's the more fun part of action planning, is coming back to it after you're done, creating it and seeing how far you've come. Because it creates that implementation timeline so that you can, work on accomplishing those specific tasks, and helps with coordinating your actions and assignments. So each of those various pieces. Um, so some of you may have all of these steps in there, but this is just kind of a general kind of process that folks will go through when they're doing any action planning. So some folks have done some data collection in year one, or are hoping to revisit some data that they've gathered from local health departments, COVID data, or gathered through data requests with us, and want to take a closer look at that and see what are some pieces that are popping out, what seems interesting, what surprised them, what concerns them, so that you can look towards the future and what you feel needs to be addressed. You can create that vision or mission statement that kind of focuses and localizes your efforts, brings folks together under their overall common goal. Brainstorm individual goals, objectives, and strategies, as well as kind of those key actions. What are our milestones that we need to see set forward into momentum? Lastly, it'll establish a timeline. So it will help for mapping out what's happening when, so that there's not too many things happening all at the same time, that things feel balanced, that even the flow of steps make sense for your community and what you see as critical for moving work forward. And then you finalize um, and affirm with your group that this is still resonates with them, that that still feeds back to their overall vision for how they see their county, their health improving and through this whole process and through each of your goals and action steps. Sometimes when it comes to the actual vision statement or that visioning piece, sometimes you can talk a bit about different tools that you could utilize to create that kind of overall picture of where you see this work going. So, for folks that are doing this virtually, um, there are tools such as Mentimeter, your chat box in Zoom, or annotate features to get folks to vote, to kind of focus around particular areas, mark what they found interesting, or even when it comes to that affirmation piece. Bringing things together. You can you can do tree exercises to see what are kind of at the root of what you're seeing in your community and how you want to move forward up your trunk. What are going to be those pillars or those long-standing pieces that then will feed into growing the leaves and the overall outcomes that you're hoping to see. You could, talk about this more as like overall just viewpoint of looking straight into the future. Now to talk a bit about kind of those goals. Goals are overall statements that describe the direction in which you're hoping for things to move. Um, so how you all kind of hope to see the needle move over the next year or what have you. And then um, objectives. So those are kind of going to be your more discrete, measurable steps that you may be looking at. So possibly you have a goal, maybe your overall goal or vision statement is to engage more non-traditional partners on your council. Many folks are talking about expanding their councils. When it comes to our objective, kind of our more specific steps, maybe we realize that our recruitment channels need to be expanded. So, working to build more extensive partnerships uh, in specific sectors. So maybe education. So maybe building more educational partnerships so that as you're recruiting for those additional seats on your council, you're able to share it with folks within that sector to really ensure that you have that representation you're looking for. Some folks have seen SMARTY objectives, not always required, but it is a lens that is very useful for many. So, being specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time phased, or making reference to a time period, inclusive and equitable. So these are just kind of ways to check through your objectives and how they are shaping up. Like, have you identified what you're hoping to change, what you're hoping may happen? Some objectives, like the example I just gave, may not always fit within the SMARTY template. But if you're kind of thinking more of like community health indicators that you may be wanting to move and address, this is a very useful frame for laying those out, for kind of touching on some of those maybe data disparities that you may have found through your work and be able to kind of call out addressing those. And then these are just kind of some example sheets that I've done with other projects. that, are useful for helping with that brainstorming process. So, kind of laying out those various aspects of the Smarty, like what will we see change? How much do we hope it will change? Or like the directionality of that. Um, who are we hoping to support? Like what community, what specific population are we hoping to address here? And then by when, like, what is our time period? How are we hoping for this to occur? And then um, how does it align? That's something that can and cannot be used. It's again totally up to you all. If you have kind of a priority area focused group. I know some folks have groups that are focusing within mental health, community health workers, and kind of like an overall access to healthcare piece. So sometimes you may have different priority areas, and that's a way to align it. There's really lots of ways to structure an action plan. So you can really do what feels good. These are some examples of, very explicit SMARTY objectives. So, it has that time period in there, specific populations, and by how much they're hoping to change. So, I'll just read the first one. By September 2023, ASA, AASA, and the Aging Network will increase the number of older adults and caregivers enrolled in registry services by 5%, with older adults and caregivers who identify as BIPOC or BIPOC making up 50% of the increase. So this was a very specific objective. So it has that time phase. They wanted this to happen by next month. And they really wanted to target their efforts around older adults and caregivers who currently receive their services, or older adults and caregivers to increase their enrollment in services, and then specifically wanted to uplift the rates that they were seeing around those that identify as BIPOC. So calling out that specific increase. So you can get very drilled down. I don't necessarily expect that from the action plans that you all provide, but just to have kind of some examples of things that you may utilize in other aspects of your work. When it comes to strategies, they're kind of, I look at them very similarly to kind of your action steps, your key actions. So they're going to outline how you plan to achieve that specific goal and objective that are associated together. What are those activities or those specific steps that you need? And so there are a few different types of strategies that can exist. Some of those may be around um, information gathering, skill development, enhancing access or awareness of services and supports, modifying access barriers and opportunities. So if there are certain barrier challenges that have existed for you all, or there's certain opportunities that you're really hoping to expand, that can be a specific strategy. And then changing the consequences of efforts. So this kind of talks more about maybe some of the things that you may see in data that kind of may show some negative associations, and or something that has been maybe co-associated with COVID and additional difficulties that folks have faced. And some may focus on modifying policies, rules, and procedures. These are some tools that folks have used for in-person action planning. So kind of sticky walls, or similar to what we did in the in-person meeting at the beginning of August, just honestly getting some sticky notes and finding plenty of wall space to post your questions, or to kind of designate specific areas that you want folks to share information. You can create worksheet documents similar to the one that we have on Padlet, And then if you're working with data, you can, have a data summary, uplift any, say, environmental scan or just like overall data overviews that you have around the areas that you all are serving. Those documents are often pretty helpful. Whoops. This is just a brief example of like a type of worksheet that you could use with folks. Um, it looks a little bit different than the one we just provided, but that's just an example. And then virtually, sometimes you're going to have to do a bit kind of between multiple tools. So maybe some Google Docs that everyone can type in together, or Microsoft has that same feature too if your organization is Microsoft based. Um, if you're in Zoom, kind of using annotate, polling, the reaction features to kind of get people engaged, as well as making use of breakout rooms and having that smaller group time to discuss and chat. And then these are just kind of some overviews of those collaborative worksheets that I just kind of talked about. They can kind of guide you through, organize things, have like a central document at the end. Then you just send that out to folks at the beginning so they can see it. And then at the end, maybe you have to go through and clean it up, but it's not the same as if you were taking notes in an in-person meeting. Talked a bit about these Zoom features. They're kind of baked in, so sometimes that's easier for folks to handle and manage. And then, the breakout rooms is a definite feature, ensuring that folks have their instructions. And then a lot of times people are more willing to talk when there's a smaller group of people around. They're a little more courageous. You can also use Jamboard, Miro, Linolet. These are all kind of virtual platforms that can create that same whiteboard experience of people moving things around, being a bit more tangible, and things like that. So those are just a few different tools that I've used in my work. And really all that I had to share around action planning. And hopefully that will give you all kind of a solid base. And I can also drop the link and login information to Padlet as well so that you have a reminder of where to find the action planning template that we created for this project. And then I was just going to ask if folks had any questions about the action planning template. Yes, Jason, the post-it board. Here, I can just do this again. But the post-it board is Jamboard. So this picture here that you're seeing, that is from Jamboard. So it's a way.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's part of Google. So if you use Google, a lot of times you have to like search for Google Jamboard. I can't get to it just from the rest of the Google apps. I don't know why, but a lot of people use it pretty well. We've used it for one of the collaborative meetings that we had earlier this year, and I don't know. I've had success with it, I'll say. But then I don't know if folks had questions about anything that we've already talked about, or this is really kind of your chance to ask loads of extra questions. I just wanted to show again the action planning template that's on Padlet. So we just kind of give brief overview, reminder that it is due September 1st, and then just kind of the tables that we had templated out. You don't have to use this template. We do just ask for kind of an action plan of kind of how you all see year two going. I think a lot of folks have lessons learned from year one that they want to implement. So this is a way to organize those thoughts. And then anything else?
That the present. I guess I keep talking. I'm sorry. The presentation was very helpful. Thank you. Um, the document that you just shared that was sent an email, right?
It
I,
was
I
with
may
your
have,
email.
I may have overlooked it, and I apologize. I'll work with my team just to make sure that I get a copy so I can review it again. I was out of town, and I apologize.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, that document was sent out shortly after our July office hour. So I want to say everyone should have received it mid-July. We will send it out again after this office hour. And I'll also, make sure that the slides I shared today are uploaded to Padlet as well. Um, that way you have both of those things to look over. And then for anyone who just kind of sat through this, felt like it was helpful, but maybe still needs additional time or needs more time to work with their counsel through it, let us know. I we can talk through a TA request, and we know that some of these may tweak and change, very iterative. So just reach out to myself or Lindsay, really anyone on our team, and we will set up some time to talk more one-on-one. Maybe, we have a few meetings, or it can take many shapes. So.
One more question.
Yeah.
Will or is the state, I'm sorry, I'm stuttering. I'm trying to make sure I say this correctly. Is the state considering another in-person event? Which you probably said, but I wasn't here. So
Oh,
in the
no.
future. Um,
Go ahead.
yep, that's all. That's all I was wondering.
Yeah. My apologies. Both the in-person meeting we had on August 1st feels so long ago, but also very recent. So yeah, I want to say, thank you to you all for coming to that event. It was great to connect with folks who were able to make it in person and really have that chance to share space with you all, see you all beyond the Zoom screen. And, I hope that everyone got a chance to enjoy, connect with someone new. And if there was someone that you were looking to connect with or something that you were hoping to learn, please share that with me. I can either, help to connect you with that person or resource. So I just want to kind of say that. And then we are hoping to have another in person event. I don't know if we'll be able to squeeze that in before the winter, so it may be after the winter. Um, so I will let folks know as soon as I get some approval around spaces and all of those reservation logistical things, and I will be sure to let folks know as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I'm gonna stop the recording, uh, and then what I